Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Trail Connection podcast. This week we are heading up to Springer Mountain in the Appalachian Trail in Georgia. And I got with me riding shotgun Brad O'Hearn, who's known for being wise beyond his years and a grower of a majestic beard. It's a little short today.
I was just looking at the video. I was like, man, that's a good looking beard right there.
It is a good looking beard.
It's on my face.
So Brad, why don't you take a minute and introduce yourself and tell the audience a little bit about your background and what makes you a qualified individual to be on the Trail Connection.
Whoa. Qualified is
very loose term.
Yeah.
Just go with it.
In this case, for sure. Well, I don't even know where to begin. I guess I've grown up camping, and I don't know if that's because my dad grew up camping. I actually don't know how much he camped when he was young, or if he was influenced by his service in the military. But we lived in southern New Jersey. I started first grade in southern New Jersey, and people get this idea about Jersey that it's all city and everybody's kind of a jerk. But where we lived was actually a really small town called Tabernacle, New Jersey, and a lot of cranberry bogs. A lot of people that we went to church with were cranberry farmers and lived right on the edge of Wharton State Forest.
Okay.
So we did a little bit of camping in that area, but we would go, like I remember a trip with my mom going to upstate New York and camping. So I did that. We camped a lot, like when we would come down to North Carolina to visit my grandparents, camp on their property. So yeah, we grew up camping. Then we moved from New Jersey to North Dakota. Me and my dad spent some time out in Teddy Roosevelt National Park, out on the western part of the state, pretty much to Montana, and like the North Dakota Badlands. And that was really cool. Got some stories from there. And then from there we moved to Utah, and that was kind of where I made it my own, because by that time I was a freshman in high school. A junior in high school at that point. And I had a Jeep Cherokee, which is like perfect vehicle for those kind of trips, and just go up into the mountains, find a place to hike, or just find a reservoir to go fishing, or drive up to a campsite and just camp, or a trailhead and start backpacking. But so I don't know. I grew up with it. I had wonderful experience doing it, enjoyed it a lot. And just, it became really important to get out and get away from society and kind of just, I grew up right before the era of smartphones and cell phones and all that. So I didn't have a cell phone until like freshman, sophomore year of high school. And the only reason I had it was because we drove, like I was on the cross country and track team, and when you're in North Dakota, the closest school is like 2 hours away.
Oh wow.
So like we would go on these meets that would last like all day. We'd leave school at lunchtime, drive there, do these track meets, and then be back, and it'd be like 9-10 o'clock at night. So like that cell phone was there to just call parents, let them know when we're coming home and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that was really the only reason I had a cell phone. And so all before that, you didn't have to disconnect like you do today. Today,
Right.
like, I'm super stoked to go on this trip because I get to turn the phone off. I get to disconnect from, like, I'm not that necessary. Like, they're not contacting me from work, but the phone goes off and I'm like, okay, well, I better just check this work email just to see if it's pertinent to me,
Yeah.
So turning all that off, being in God's country land, and just hearing the birds chirp and the fire crackle and the streams run, it's just so comforting to be in that environment and not have to worry about the things of the world, of society, just get away from it all.
Yeah, I'm really excited to get up here. I'm a mountain man trapped in the swamp, and I grew up going to North Carolina and up to Tennessee for vacations all the time with my family, and I feel like that's where I should have grew up because that's where I feel at home the most. Even though I'm born and raised in Florida and growing up in the same neighborhood, I still live in the same neighborhood I grew up in. That's home, but I feel a different connection when I'm up in the mountains, and so any opportunity I get to break state lines and get up there and get in the foothills or get up in the mountains is really exciting for me and something I look forward to a lot. So today we are going to be heading up. We are heading up today, and we're going to be putting in right at the base of Springer Mountain, doing a couple days heading north. And so this episode we're going to talk a little bit about the prep for the trip. Obviously we're driving, so we're not hiking just yet, but by the time we get done with this, we will be putting on that trail. And we're going to do a couple days, a couple nights, and then pull off on our third day. And today we're going to talk a little bit about the gear we chose to take and the route we're going to take and kind of prepping for the trip. So Brad's never been on the Appalachian Trail before. This will be my second leg of the trip. Brad, what are you thinking? How are you feeling about getting up here and getting going?
I'm going to rely on your expertise now that you've
done it one time.
One section. So,
yeah.
This is my first multi-day backpacking trip, and I feel like I'm pretty well prepared. Maybe a little overpacked, but I'm ready for it. I think we were talking this morning about our weights, and we're about the same. I think I was around 45, 50 pounds, and that's what you said you were at, but
yeah, I was
you got all the equipment, and I'm just there for the ride,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, I think I was able to shave off about 25 pounds from what I took last year. So I don't think that you overpacked nearly as much as I did for last year.
Not.
But I focused a lot on just cutting out stuff that had no business being in the pack, stuff I didn't even touch. I thought I would need, but I just didn't. Made more sense to have that extra stuff if I was going for a lot longer period of time, but even then, just a lot of extra weight that's unnecessary. And I felt that extra weight about 30 seconds onto the trail last time, so didn't want to do that again. So the route we're going to take is still kind of up in the air. We know where we're putting in, kind of have a general idea of where we're planning on pulling out for the night tonight, and I do know since we're getting a partial day in today, I want to get a good amount hiked, but I don't want to overdo it the first day. We'll just find a nice spot to post up tonight, and then probably hit the peak of Springer Mountain tomorrow, and maybe go a little further than that, put in a good long day tomorrow, because it'll be our only full day. And then get going on Thursday morning after breakfast and hike a short little stint and pull off somewhere around Cooper Gap. Because I'm kind of thinking it'll be about 20 miles total if we're able to do that. Might be pushing it but we'll see. We'll see how far we can go. So let's talk a little bit about the stuff we chose to bring. What you got? What you got for your sleeping arrangement? What'd you decide on bringing?
So I borrowed a tent from my brother-in-law, a single one-man tent, because the only other tent I have is a two-man tent for me and my wife. And so it's a Eureka single-man tent. I've only built it one time. It's way lighter than what I had, and it seems pretty spacious, and it's got some cool features on it.
Okay.
As far as like sleeping pad, using the Thermarest outdoor vital sleeping bag, I think it's good down to like 20 degrees. I don't know. I'd have to double check on what it's rated for, but
Okay.
we used it a couple times. Kept me plenty warm, and the lows only being like the mid to high 40s. I think it'll be plenty warm for what we're doing this weekend or this week.
Yeah, I'm excited for that temperature, man.
Yeah.
It's barely creeping down in Florida. It's still up pretty high, and you could feel it as soon as we stop to get some gas up here in Georgia. You can already feel the lightness in the air, the cool breeze. So I am pumped to get some cooler weather and sleep in some nice cold weather. I chose a tent as well this time. Last year I took a hammock, and it was good for versatility. I mean, a lot of different places that we could hang it as long as there were trees. But I had like one major regret last time, and that was we came up on Chihuahua Bald, which is a beautiful vista on the section that we did, and it was like a meadow on top of the mountain, and there was a perfect spot to camp, and we couldn't because both of us had hammocks. And I don't want to kick myself this time. If we find a cool spot like that, I want to be able to sleep wherever we want to. So I chose to go that route. I've got a Alps Engineering one-man tent. Used it a couple times, and I'm excited to kind of get that thing broke in a little bit more. Typically I am in a hammock when I'm down in Florida, but excited to get the tent pitched up tonight. I also got a Climate thermal sleeping pads, inflatable. I got the Luxe version, which is about 30 inches wide, so it's about just as wide as the inside of that tent, which is really nice. So that's what I'll be going with. And I also have just a pretty low end of the spectrum Teton multi-season bag. I think it goes down to like 20 degrees. But yeah, again, that thing, we've used it several times, and I really like it. It keeps me warm for the most part, and it was affordable. It was in a good price range for what I was needing at the time when I got started. So haven't upgraded that part yet.
Well, we just got our sleeping bags was it 2 Christmases ago or the last Christmas? No, it was last Christmas, because we went on a camping trip just with my cousins just up to my uncle's farm, just to get out in the outdoors and just enjoy that time. But it wasn't real like it was car camping on a property that was near a house, so you could use a toilet.
Yeah.
But my wife and I, one thing I learned from when you and I went back in behind your house, that was the first time I used my equipment. It was like I was sliding around on my Thermarest with my sleeping bag. Yeah. And I just kept falling off of it because it's like a teardrop shape. Mm-hmm. So one thing that we did different when we went with my cousins was I put the sleeping pad in the sleeping bag. Yeah. And that worked really well. The only problem was our sleeping bags can zip together, and so we're like, oh yeah, that'd be cool, like it was like me and my wife, and we can zip the bags together and be like we're at home, Yeah. But the problem is, one, those the sleeping pads were teardrop shaped, and we each have one, so it was like the two heads would want to be together, and either the tail ends would want to split to the other corners, or it would just create a rift. So one person, if we were like snuggling, would be like on the ground.
Yeah.
And also like rolling around that big, now the sleeping bag opening was much larger because they're zipped together, so it would just let in cold air, and so my wife froze all night, and so we decided we'd never probably use that feature ever again because it froze us out that night.
I wonder if you could take those pads and like flip them in for in, so like the teardrop sheets kind of mesh together.
We thought about that, or I thought about that after the fact. But the fact is, like, there's such a like the inside of the bag is already really slick, and the mattress is slick. So I feel like it would just the one person wouldn't have a head because it's the skinny part. Yeah. And it would just probably drift off anyways. So it's probably just.
Well, another option you can think about too, if y'all wanted to give that another shot in the future, is Climate makes a double thermal pad as well. Probably, I don't remember exactly the dimensions on it, but it's basically like a 2-person pad. It's real nice and inflatable. Check that out if you want to. So as far as clothing goes, we talked a little bit about the temperatures we're expecting. It's going to be probably in the upper 70s in the day, probably at the peak, and then in the evenings and overnight probably dropping down in mid 40s. So I just brought my normal hiking pants and a couple long sleeve dry fit shirts, and I got a couple short sleeves as well, and then like a pullover like rain jacket type deal, and I expect to stay pretty warm. I don't think it's going to get too terribly chilly. I mean, we might get some drafts up there for up on a peak, but these Columbia pants that I've gotten a couple years ago, I really like a lot, because I don't know exactly the science behind it, but the technology is really great, because I feel like if I need to be cool, they keep me cool. If I need to be warm, they keep me warm, and I don't really need an additional layer underneath. So the temperatures that we're going to be in are perfect for that. So I got a couple pair of those and a couple pair of shirts, and, typical extra set of clothing there in case I get wet. What do you got as far as your cooking utensils?
That same year that I got my sleeping bag, sleeping pad, my cousin got me I think it's GSR Helulite Kettlist. So it's got a little kettle, and with that came like a little bowl, and he also got me a little stove that just mounts directly to one of the fuel canisters. And I've used it a few times, and it works perfect. It's a Primus or a Primus, so had no issues with it so far, and it just folds down, and that's all I really brought as far as like utensils or anything like that. I mean, besides just pocket knife, and in that little bowl there is like a little foldable spork thing. Yeah. So, as far as cooking supplies, that's all I brought.
Yeah, I kind of got the same setup, just a little pocket stove and a jet boil can, and then a little pot for boiling water. I just decided to go with a couple Mountain House meals for dinner, and then I've got some kind of snacky type food to get some protein throughout the day. What about you?
Yeah, Mountain House meal. I think I got like 2 dinner ones and like one for just a breakfast, and then got a bunch of Cliff bars. I know we were talking about earlier the applesauce, squeezable applesauces. Yeah. And like the tuna fish in a bag kind of deal. Yeah. Got some flavors. So you got your long handle spoon? Well, I got that little spork, but I mean, they come with little spoons. I'm kind of interested to see how well they work. I mean, I don't know if it'll work too well.
One of the cool things about being on this trail is there's a lot of like community up there, and I ran into a guy last year when we were up on the trail that highly recommended getting a long-handled spoon for your freeze-dried meals. Keeps your knuckles clean.
Yeah.
And so I went ahead and picked me up one of those, and that was a must. So speaking of community on this trail, so I heard a rumor. I don't know if this is true, but I think it's probably more typical for through hikers. But apparently, there's some trail etiquette to where you pick a trail name when you're going hiking.
All right.
And me and John didn't do this last year because I didn't know anything about it. But apparently, you're supposed to pick a name to refer to yourself as when you get on the trail. So I thought that might be a fun little exercise for us to do. So I don't know, maybe while we're talking, we can think about a name. I'll think one for you. You think one for me, and then we have to go with whatever we get.
Ooh, man.
So I won't put you on the spot. We'll just kind of get back on topic here, and if one comes to mind, you can throw it out there. So as far as other gear that I got packed in there, I didn't bring a whole lot of like utensils for cutting other than like a pocket knife. I got a short little like 18-inch machete type deal with a saw blade on it. I don't plan on cutting anything up. Just try to use whatever sticks are around or little logs are around. But it might be good to have some kind of protection from the kind of wildlife if we get attacked by anything.
Well, I'd like to see you go toe-to-toe with your little knife and wildlife.
Yeah.
It'll make this trip a lot more interesting.
Listen, I know the rhyme for coral snakes, so I can handle anything.
Yeah. You and our recent guest Joseph.
Yeah.
Taking out bull elephants.
Yeah.
With your coral snake knowledge.
So, yeah, I'm excited to get back up here and get going. And so I wanted to put in at the trailhead just to kind of kick things off with the podcast. And we're talking about, new beginnings and new journeys and all that stuff. The trailhead is it's the place to start. And it's not as convenient for me to get up to Maine and hike it north to south. So I figured we'd start right down here in the south, our neighbor state above us, and get heading up there. So
build your tolerance for that cold weather.
Yeah, man.
Florida boy.
Yeah. So let's see, trail name. I'll give you a trail name. I didn't put a whole lot of forethought into this. I probably should have.
Man, I listened to all your podcasts so far, and ever since that first one, like where you talk about being a dreamer and not like in the past you haven't followed through with your projects, so that's always stuck with me.
Yeah.
And that's where the inspirado came from, or was for your nickname that I have for you.
Okay.
And I'm kind of bouncing between the two. It's either Dreamweaver or Dreamcatcher. So I think whatever you want, man.
I think we should go with Dreamweaver because
Dreamweaver.
Then you can sing along the trail.
I knew you were gonna say that too. I knew it.
A Dreamweaver song.
Dreamweaver.
So I've been going back and forth a little bit on yours too. So I mentioned that at the beginning, when my introduction for you, that I think that you're wise beyond your years, and so I was kicking around the name, maybe like Wise Man Child or something like that.
Wise Man Child. Man, now you came up with that. Now I feel like I got to come up with something a little more, I don't know, in-depth than Dreamweaver.
I don't know. That was very thoughtful of me.
Yeah.
You're going back to the roots. I got my super fan here with me on the trip. No,
since day one.
Yeah, since day one. On a serious note, Brad has been super supportive of this project. That kind of bounced this idea off of him at the get-go. I talked to my wife about it first, and then he was probably the second person to hear about it. And it's very encouraging to get it going. So I'm happy to have him as a guest on the show and help me kind of develop it a little bit. And he's gotten a hard job of having to listen to my garbage the first couple times to see if it was worth putting out on there.
So do I get a credit when like the credits roll at the end of your podcast, like editor-in-chief?
No, you just get your face on a full episode.
Two full episodes. That's more than anybody else so far. So I mean, I'm sitting pretty.
Yeah, I mean, that's the ultimate prize right there.
That's true.
But seriously, I appreciate Brad being able to take time to do this. He, along with everyone else who's been involved with this so far, has been super flexible. Because although I'm a dreamer and a big time planner, I'm really bad at getting things done like ahead of time. So it was kind of last minute getting him to come with me on the trip, and also appreciate his wife allowing him to come with her current state of being with child.
Yeah, with child. Getting real close to the end too. So yeah, that was it's real cool for her to allow me to do this before the baby comes, because afterwards, things get bogged down. Yeah, you would know.
Yeah, I know.
You would know.
No, it's a blessing to have every single one of those kids, and there's struggles that come with it, but I wouldn't trade it for the world, man. They're awesome. It changes your life, it changes you, and your fatherhood's gonna be fun, man.
Well, having met all your children, I have to say that you've done a pretty decent job.
I appreciate that. Thanks.
No,
they're all
done
equally
better than decent.
They're all equally crazy.
Yeah.
So, in their own way. So, let's see here. We talked a lot about some of the gear that we had, but we were talking a lot more in depth this morning about different things. You want to kind of revisit that?
Yeah. So this morning we were talking less about what gear we packed and more about how we packed it, because anybody who's worn a backpack on their back knows that weight distribution is critical for comfort, especially over a long period of time. So, I mean, as a relative newbie at the whole backpacking concept, I mean, I just got on YouTube and watched a quick video, and the first one that popped up was like REI, how to pack a backpack.
Yeah.
And the girl on their little tutorial was like, okay, hey, here's your backpack. How I usually set it up is put soft, squishy stuff at the bottom as like a lumbar support cushion, and then so she put like her sleeping bag and like pillow, stuff like that down at the bottom of the bag.
Yeah.
And then heavier items in the middle, and then lighter stuff on top. Mm-hmm. And that's pretty much how I did it. I put my pillow, my Thermarest pillow, and my Thermarest sleeping pad down at the bottom, and then put my clothes for the next day, and then I put my heavier items like my food and my kettle and my stove in a dry bag on top of that. And then the other thing she said was you want to put your tent or your whatever your shelter is going to be near the top in case of inclement weather and you got to set up quick. And so you want that, you don't want to pull all your stuff out,
right,
just to get your tent out. So I put my tent right near the top, right underneath my another little snack bag and my raincoat.
Right.
So quickly grab the raincoat, grab the tent, and start putting it together so that you get out of the rain.
Yeah.
And I mean, we're about to find out to see if that was a wise choice or not, that arrangement. So
yeah, mine my tent rolls up pretty nice and packs on the outside of my bag, so that's super convenient if we need to drop it real quick and set it up. I don't really even have to get into my bag for anything. I can get in there and get in the shelter, and then kind of dig in, and so that works out pretty nicely. I've kind of found that same type of setup works pretty well. I've kind of got, it's always playing Tetris, trying to get your gear in there just right so you can maximize your space and make sure that you get every little piece of gear that you want to take in there. And I was really pat myself on the back this morning or yesterday morning as I was getting everything prepped and ready to go, that I was shedding a lot of stuff that I didn't need, and it got down to putting it all in the bag, and man, I don't feel like I cut that much out. It's like between the clothing that I have in a dry bag for extra days, and then my food for a couple days, really the only optional piece of gear that I put in my bag was my rain fly for my tent. That's actually for my hammock, but I brought it as extra protection for my tent in case we did get into some kind of rain, or if we just needed some shelter, to kind of get out of some rain storms or whatever. But forecast really isn't calling for much rain except for this afternoon. Probably be clear the rest of the time we're up here, but you never know. And that was one mistake I made last year, was preparing for any kind of scenario, and that's a fine line. You can't do that when you're backpacking every time you go, because you're just going to take way too much stuff, which I did last year. And I had more gear that I was rummaging past to get to what I needed last year than I plan on having this go around. So we'll see how I do. But one thing's for sure, no matter who you talk to, anybody who has ever backpacked at all, they will say the number one mistake all first-timers make is you take way too much stuff. So we'll see. See if you where you fall on that ring. So I know you've done backpacking before, but it's just a trail like this, and you never know. So,
and I feel like I only pack the bare essentials, or what I consider the bare essentials, and like you said, we'll find out today. The real test will be when we get out on that trail and see what I really use and what I wish I had left,
Yeah.
But just because I don't use it on this trip doesn't mean it wouldn't be useful on another trip. So I might still end up packing it no matter what.
Yeah,
so you just never know.
Yeah. And so I mentioned in episode 2 about the comfort items that I like to bring. I did bring those with me this time, but I think it's going to be kind of a game time decision on whether or not I actually take them or not. And to be honest, I probably would leave them. I probably would leave them in the truck if it weren't for the fact that we're going to be recording our second part of this episode on our last day, and that setup, the table and the chair has been a real nice setup for that aspect. But really, I don't think I'm going to need it, and it'll probably be more of a hassle than anything to have those 2 extra items with me. So I might just leave them in the truck. We'll see. You'll have to tune in and see what I ended up doing. There's your cliffhanger for the week. See if Tim took my chair. We'll see how the scene is set up for that second part of the episode. But all right. So while we're talking about what we think is the bare essentials and the absolute items, what is one item that you absolutely have to have with you no matter what, that you packed this time around?
Besides the absolute bare essentials, shelter and something to sleep on.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with pocket knife.
Yeah.
I carry one every day, and I use it every day.
Mm-hmm.
So to think about going on a trip like this or hitting the trail without at least a pocket knife, if not a fixed blade. I don't know how you're gonna make. And even honestly, if you watch the survival shows, like my dad told me about the History Channel one called Alone, which is a really cool one.
That is a cool show.
And pretty much the guy who won the first season, he said his most important thing was his knife and a pot. Like that, just because you're gonna boil everything, include like it holds your water, you can wash stuff in it. So like a pot, some kind of water holding device, and a knife. Like it's really what you need.
Yeah.
Every time. Yeah.
For me, that one's a tough one, man. I probably should have thought about that question before I asked you about what my rebuttal is going to be. But I think that I've mentioned it before. I really think that my sleeping pad is like up there. I mean, as far as like core survivalist materials, yeah, absolutely got to have shelter, got to have some kind of cutting utensil, something to make food in, or at least get water, pure water in.
Right.
But I mean, as far as like a piece of gear that, you know, if I had to choose between the square footage in my bag, you know, I think
for another 5 miles.
Okay, I think that I think I'm gonna have to take that pad every time, just because I've slept on bare ground before, you know, and that's pretty much all I did growing up was sleep in a sleeping bag on bare ground in a tent. And when you're a kid, it doesn't matter. But I'm an old fart now. I'm just turned 32 years old, and I gotta protect my back.
Yeah.
But the pad is just, it's super comfortable, and it makes the long hike days a little bit easier and a little bit more exciting when you have a good night's sleep. And so, you know, I look forward to being comfortable at night and then waking up refreshed and ready to start the next day and take on whatever the trail throws at me. So that'd probably be my pick.
And you even got, even in the name of your sleeping pad, Lux.
Yeah.
Brings things of luxuriousness.
Yeah.
You know, mine's just like it sounds like you're crushing like wafer crackers. The thing is just tiny, and it's barely big enough for your body.
Yeah.
And it's just to keep you off the ground. Yours, man, you're getting a little luxurious on me.
Yeah. Well,
that comfort.
You know, you can.
But maybe I'll understand when I'm your age, man.
Yeah.
An old geezer like you.
Yeah. So water purification. What you got for that?
You know, right now with the budget being what it is and baby on the way, I'm probably not where I would like to be in that realm. I've just got a life straw.
Okay.
And I've got my Camelback I filled up with water at the house, which is RO water, and then that's all I got right now. So
okay.
I'm hoping to fill. I brought my clean canteen. I fill that up with water and then suck the water out with my life straw instead of doing what they show on the package and like laying down next to a stream and sucking it out of a puddle or something.
Well, you should have got yourself a Sawyer Squeeze, man. They're not that expensive, and I got the one that I got last year was like the kit. It came with like 3 different sized bags that you roll up, and they've got a fitting, like a water bottle fitting on each end of each one, and then that squeeze screws right onto the top of that, so you literally fill up the packet of the container with water, screw the filter on top, and then you drink right from that, like you're drinking from a water bottle from the convenience store, and it works great. It's I can't remember off the top of my head exactly like what the longevity of it, but it's good for a really long time as far as the filtration effectiveness goes. And I reached out to the manufacturer a couple days ago because I hadn't used mine in a long time, and they assured me with a simple back flush through the filter body, it'll clean everything up, and you can get it going again right away. So that's what I'm going with, and it's there's just like a freshness to the mountain streams that's really cool. And I already feel like it's clean water, but you never want to take a chance with that. Always purify your water, either by boiling it or using some kind of filter system. And but nothing was more refreshing last year that I remember than filling up those pouches and getting that good, clean mountain spring water through that filter. So hopefully that works out for us, and we can find some good water sources along this leg. I've got a 2-liter hydration pack that I got filled up as well, and then I've got those pouches with the filter that I'll be using. All right, so did you do any kind of training or any kind of like prep for this hike, or you just kind of going in cold turkey to see what happens?
A little bit of both, almost. Like it's not like I've been training my legs too much. I've been running most of my life. I mean, I started track in 5th grade and ran it all the way up to my junior year, and then ran cross country from 8th grade till my senior year. So, and then I've run off and on since then. Right now I'm training for Ragnar trail run event, which is it's like a relay race. With this one, I've done 2 others in the past that were road races. You had 12 people and you had a van and you hand off, and 6 people per van. This one is a little different in the fact that it's trail running, and it's in the same spot, so it's 3 different loops, and there's only 6 people on a team. So I'm really excited for that, because I've always loved trail running, and haven't had an opportunity, except for like one time, to do, and that wasn't really a true trail run. There was a 10K called Utah's Toughest 10K, and so I've been training for that a little bit, and that's about all I've done, really. I mean, I stay pretty active. I hit the gym at work, and then I work out at the house, but I don't focus too much on legs, because I've always been pretty well set in that. On the lower body, I've always been pretty scrawny up top, so I've been doing a lot of strengthening my core and upper back and stuff like that. So I think I'm pretty well suited. I guess we'll see when we start doing this.
So last time, first time ever going on the trail, first time ever doing backpacking hike, like completely new, like as green as you could be. Did not really do a whole lot of prep, other than a few trips out to my secret spot, and a couple miles here and there with a fully loaded pack. And I thought, hey, I'd be good to go. I'm used to hiking in mountains, growing up and all that kind of stuff. It won't be that big of a deal. And we pulled up, put in on that trail, and I'm not kidding you, like 2 minutes in, I had like a panic attack, because I could not, my heart rate was through the roof. I could barely breathe. Like, I was breathing so heavy, and like I was starting to get lightheaded, and it was just, I don't know, it just seemed like everything kind of hit me at once, and I immediately thought, Tim, you are an idiot. What did you just do? You got dropped off for 3 days in the wilderness. Like, your ride is she's left. She's gone, and you got this giant pack on your back that you can't do it. You're just not going to be able to do it. And so that was not the greatest way to be introduced to backpacking, but I was able to kind of calm myself down and took a breather, got my breathing under control and my heart rate back down, and went right to it. And I didn't have any more issues the rest of the trip. I mean, it was hard, and I worked muscles that I wasn't planning on working, but as far as like being physically able to do it, it was fine. But I just kind of had a little minor anxiety attack there at at the get-go. So I don't expect to have the same thing happen this time, but we'll see.
Yeah, so what have you been doing from last year to this year to prepare yourself? Anything?
Cutting weight.
Cutting weight.
Cutting
Just
weight.
on your backpack or on your body as well?
We're on my midsection.
Okay.
No,
that's pretty critical.
actually, mostly in the pack, but I have been doing some physical activity here recently, trying to get a little bit of my my dad body toned back up. So I'm trying to lose a little bit of gut and just kind of get used to exercising and being physically active. My job requires me to make rounds, but walking up and down stairs quite a bit, but that's about it. And there's not a whole lot of physical demands to it. So it just the normal, activity of playing with my kids and getting out on any kind of trail as much as possible. And I have done probably about probably six or 7 miles total, like with my full pack and extra gear. Filming a few of these episodes early on here in the last 3 to 4 weeks, and so I feel pretty good. I don't think that it's going to be as much of a shock to my system as it was last time, for sure. And I think once we get going, the muscle memory will kick in and everything will be fine. But plus, I got a better pack now, and you got the one I used last time. So hopefully it serves well and doesn't hurt you.
Well, I can tell you, I've got my ideal pack that I've got in my wish list that I have not been able to afford as of yet.
Yeah.
But this one's a big step up from what I used that one time you and I went.
Yeah.
And it packed well, and I walked around the house a little bit with it, and I think I'll be all right. I'm got a pretty high pain tolerance, and I'm not gonna quit. So I'll be pushing you if you're pushing me. And we're gonna get this thing knocked out. And we're gonna have fun doing it.
Yeah. So one thing that I think is pretty cool that I definitely want to try to do if we have an opportunity to is there's along the way for anybody who's watching this that may not be familiar with how the trail's set up and everything. There's positions throughout different cities and areas where they're kind of like known areas for hikers to refuel, get more supplies and get some good meals and all that kind of stuff. And one of the places that we stopped last time was a pretty popular stop, but it's always interesting whenever you come into those areas to kind of see the specialty type gear that they've got for this sport. I've grown up in Florida, there are not many areas you can go get backpacking supplies or ultralight supplies other than your typical Bass Pro Shop, or we've got an REI semi close to where we're at in the Tampa area over towards Orlando, Winter Park area. But that's got to be a special trip to go out there.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you just get the typical Walmart special stuff, which is not, it works, but it's not ideal for if you're really serious about getting good gear and all that. So I just like seeing what's available and touching it, feeling it, seeing what the weight is and all that. So I'm looking forward to. I think there's 1 or 2 of those shops along the route we're going to go because of it being a popular destination. With it being the trailhead, it's either where you're beginning or where you're ending if you're doing a through hike. So there's always going to be a little bit more availability there. So I'm excited to kind of see what they've got to offer and just check out some gear and see what's out there.
Well, I 100% agree with you. Even getting ready for this trip, I was a little dismayed at the lack of availability of stores where you can, we have a Bass Pro and Dick's and Walmart. That's all we got.
Yeah.
And I know not too long ago I sent you an article, and a few of my friends I saw, they are putting in REI in Tampa, but who knows how long that's going to take, and hopefully they can kind of expedite that, because that'd be awesome to have so close. Because Orlando is not a fun place to be.
Yep.
So
great for the convenience, terrible for my bank account.
Yeah.
My wife teases me a lot. I'm going to say it's teasing, but she tells me every time I go in the woods, I spend money, and that's partly true. I mean, I do. I just like testing stuff out and trying out different things, and it can get a little pricey, and you know, I justify it as, you know, I might spend $15-$20 on a small piece of gear or something to test out, as opposed to like $150 on a new fishing pole or, you know, whatever. But yeah, to each his own, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just think that where we live, geographical location, it makes it difficult for those types of stores to thrive, because, I mean, in the time that I've kind of started getting into this and talking with people and meeting people who are interested in the same thing, like, there's a lot of people in the Tampa Bay area that do this kind of thing and have this interest, either, you know, weekend warrior type setup, or like, you know, some dedicated people who have actually done like large sections of trails or through hikes. But you know, we're all kind of in the same boat. Like, we live in that area, but we don't have access to the stuff that, you know, our hobby is. And so I think that vocation will probably do really, really well, you know, once they get it in and going.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at Florida, Tampa's kind of probably, I would even venture to say, maybe the worst spot in Florida for outdoor activities, because if you look at Orlando, there's wilderness right outside of Orlando. Like, we were looking at going to Key West Springs, and then you got Ocala to the north with the National Forest, and up north there's a lot of going on, and then down south you got the Everglades, which isn't really conducive for camping, but definitely exploring. I know we were talking earlier about going to Dry Tortuga, and one of the least visited national parks, so get out there and visit your national parks.
Yeah.
But as far as just the Tampa Bay area, I mean, we got up in Brooksville area, you got the Croom tract of national forest there, but really there's not much going on in the greater Tampa Bay area. And being a guy who's lived around the country and visited a lot of different places, it's kind of disheartening, especially coming here from Utah, where you go 20 minutes. Like, we were right on the mountains. We were in the Salt Lake area, and you could just go right. You just drive towards the mountains, and you could find a place to camp or hike or fish or whatever. And out here, I mean, fishing's huge. I mean, I can't speak to that, because I haven't done as much fishing out here than as much as I did back in Utah.
Yeah.
But I know a lot of people who fish, so you could do that all day long. But as far as hiking, like, it's just hiking around in sand with very little elevation change and in a pine forest, and so there's not really much to see.
Yeah, I mean, there are some hidden gems here and there,
right.
But I mean, overall, I mean, you're right. There's not a whole lot of, you know, variation to the terrain, but, you know, Florida is a world-renowned place for saltwater fishing, and, you know, there's a lot of really cool places to do that type of thing. But for what we're talking about and what we're focused on here, you know, it doesn't really meet our needs very much. But, you know, there's a lot of neat things, like, you know, like our last episode, doing that kayak run. I had known about that area, but never knew how awesome that place was. So that's one thing about this podcast and this project I've got going on, is like, I want to learn from those around me that know about these special places that I don't. I mean, I've grown up in Florida my whole life, and there's still a ton of stuff that I haven't explored in my own backyard. So it's exciting to just have discussions and meet different people and talk about things that they've experienced and share that kind of information. And who knows, man, you might be able to find something really awesome like 30 minutes away from Tampa. but anyway. All right, so we're getting pretty close to the end of our journey up to Springer Mountain. We're going to be getting here and getting out of the truck and beginning our northern ascent here pretty soon. So I wanted to say thank you to everybody who took time to listen and watch this episode, and thank you to Brad for being a part of these episodes. And we're doing a two-parter here, like I mentioned, and we'll be bringing the second part in a couple weeks, talking about our trip and sharing some experiences from the trails. So thanks again for taking the time to come out and come up with me, and I'm excited to see what we're up against here.
Yeah, me too. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to be on the podcast and talk to you and have these conversations, and I hope that it was enjoyable for everybody who's watching and listening today. And yeah, thanks, Tim.
No problem. Until next time, this is the Trail Connection.